right, today we're going to do sections 4.3 through 4.5. We're kind of doing them all together because there's some information in them that is all very similar, and I think it's just as easy to learn them all together. So we're talking about triangle congruence here. So look at your notes for this lesson, and you've got one frame. We're going to fill this frame in, and this frame is going to tell us a lot. So our key topic here is triangle congruence postulates, and this is about our proof that triangles are congruent. So these are the ways we know triangles are congruent, and obviously we've got 5 of them. So our first one, SSS, stands for side, side, side. Okay, S stands for side in all of these. So if 3 sides of one triangle are congruent to 3 sides of another, then the 2 triangles are congruent. And this is a video you're probably going to have to pause quite a bit to write these down. I'm not going to give you enough time as I go through this. So side, side, side. If 3 sides of one are congruent to 3 sides of another, the triangles are congruent. So I'm going to draw 2 pictures here. I'm going to say these 2 are the same, and these are the same, and these 2 sides are the same. And since I know all 3 sides are the same, my triangles are indeed congruent. So let's see here. Decide whether or not the congruent statement is true by side, 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 and explain your reasoning. This example is on the back of your frame. So just flip to the back of your frame here. And first of all, let's look at this. So we know that these 2 sides are the same. They're both 9. We know that these 2 sides are congruent because they're both 9 as well. And we know that these 2 are the same by the reflexive property, which we talked about yesterday. So are these 2 triangles congruent? Yeah, by side, 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 they're congruent. Pause the video and try B. Okay, welcome back. You should have found that B, they are not congruent by side, side, side. Let's look at this next one. Side, angle, side. So the S stands for side, the A stands for angle. So we have side, angle, side here. This tells us if 2 sides and the, very important here, included angle of a triangle are congruent to the corresponding parts of another, then the triangles are congruent. Included means the angle that both of the sides touch. So if I have 2 triangles like this, and I know that these 2 sides are congruent and these 2 sides are the congruent, I would need to know that this angle in between the congruent sides is also congruent. So that's an example of triangles that are congruent by side, angle, side. So flip your page over and let's try this one. It says, decide whether or not the congruent statement is true by side, angle, side, and explain your reasoning. So we want to know, is triangle LMN congruent to triangle NOP? So we know that LM right here is congruent to NP because we've got the 2 markings. We know that MN is congruent to OP, and we know that these 2 angles are congruent as well. And if you think, I've got a side over here, and then I've got an angle. So I've got a side, angle, side. Side, angle, side. I have congruent parts. They're in the same order. The angle is the included angle. So yes, they are congruent by side, angle, side. Try D. Okay, you should have found that there's a 90-degree angle there. DB is congruent to itself. But let's see here. It says, is triangle ABD congruent to triangle CBD? So A and C are the same spots. Okay. B is the same spot and D is the same spot. Oh, I see what I was thinking. Look at this. This marking and this marking. Those are not corresponding parts. That's why this is not congruent. Okay, let's try the next one. ASA stands for angle, side, angle. So this tells us if 2 angles and the included side of a triangle are congruent to the corresponding parts of another, then the triangles are congruent. So a picture of this, draw triangles like this time. Let's say these 2 angles are the same, and these 2 are the same. So I've got my 2 angles, and I would need the side that touches both of those angles to also be congruent in order for this to be congruent by angle side angle. Let's try this. Flip your page over. So decide whether or not the congruent statement is true by angle side angle and explain your reasoning. So looking here, hey, I know these two are vertical angles, so those are congruent. We've got these two sides are the same, and then these two angles are also the same. So I've got angle, I've got a side, and then I've got the angles here. So I've got angle side angle. So yes, they are indeed congruent by angle side angle. Pause the video and try the next one. Okay, welcome back. These are not right angles. Okay, we can see that. We know that they've got these sides in common. They've also got these sides in common. So we've got an angle here and a side and a side. And here I've got an angle and a side right here. Well, we're looking for angle side angle. And we've got angle side side. Okay, and we do that because that's the way they're closest to each other. We couldn't start with your side and your angle and then go all the way through a whole side and another angle to get to this side. So it doesn't work. So they're not congruent. Our next one here, angle, angle, side. We have two angles and the non-included side of a triangle are congruent to the corresponding parts of another. Then the triangles are congruent. So we know two angles are the same, but the non-included side is the same. Okay, so let's draw a picture here. So I'm going to have, here's a triangle, and here's a triangle, and I'm going to say these two angles are congruent, and these two angles are congruent. So I want a non-included side to be the same. I'm going to pick this right here because that side is not in between the two angles. I could have picked this top side up here. I could have picked those top two to be congruent as well. But for angle, angle, side, that side is not in the middle of the two angles. So decide whether or not the congruent statement is true by angle, angle, side, and explain your reasoning. So see here, well, I've got an angle. Okay, those are the same. Got 90-degree angles right here. Oh, and I forgot. One thing for this one, you might have a problem just telling what my two triangles are. Here's one of my triangles. Okay, there's one triangle. Okay. And here's the other triangle that we're talking about. So they both have a 60-degree angle. They both have a 90-degree angle. Okay. And then they both share this side down here. So we've got angles that are the same. We've got angles that are the same right here. And then we have a side that they share. So yes, they are congruent by angle, angle, side. Okay? Pause the video and try this next one on your own. Okay, welcome back. You can see that these have angles that are the same. They have a right angle here that's the same, and they've got this side that's the same because of the reflexive property. So we've got angle and then a side and then an angle here, angle and a side and an angle. Our question here though is asking us, are they congruent by angle, angle, side? Well, no, not by angle, angle, side. These are congruent by angle, side, angle. Our last one here, hypotenuse, leg. If the hypotenuse and leg of a right triangle are congruent to the corresponding parts of another, then the triangles are congruent. So H stands for hypotenuse, L stands for leg, and a key thing here is this has to be with a right triangle, and you must know that it's a right triangle in order to say this. So let me draw a little picture here. Okay, here's my right triangle. Here's my another right triangle. Your hypotenuse is the side across from the 90-degree angle, so we'd have to say those are the same. And a leg is either of the other two sides. So I could say this and this side are the same, or I could say the bottom sides are the same. So I'm going to say this is congruent to this. I should put two markings there because they're obviously not the same as the hypotenuse. So that would be true by hypotenuse leg. just to further explain it, make sure you understand it, a leg is the two shorter sides of a right triangle. Okay, so here's my right angle. These two shorter sides, those are my legs. Okay? And then the hypotenuse is the longest side of the right triangle, and it's opposite the right angle. So there's my hypotenuse right there. Legs and hypotenuse, definitely a couple vocab words that you need to know because we will use them throughout the rest of this course. So decide whether there's enough information to prove that the two angles are congruent by using the hypotenuse-leg theorem. So let's look at A here. We know they're both right angles. Okay? They have this leg that they share. And then don't they also share this side right here? They've got that in common. And since that side is across from my right angle, that is indeed the hypotenuse. So they've got the hypotenuse that they share, and they've got a leg that they share. So yes, they are congruent by hypotenuse leg. Okay? This next one, okay, we don't know that they're right triangles. It's not given to us. Since we don't know that they're right triangles, we can't say they're congruent by hypotenuse leg. Okay? So we're going to stop here. Remember, if you had any questions at all, make sure you put a star by them, and that way in class we can go through them. What you should really do with this video is study your 5 sides, and so you know what they are. You kind of have memorized what the 5 options that we have are. Have a great day.